Hello and welcome back to another installment of the Red Jeep project, whichever you prefer to call it. As I film this, it's Memorial Day weekend. So what I'm doing today is I have to, now that I know that this doesn't need any modifications itself, it's the bumper and the hinge bracket over there that needs modifications. I'm going to go ahead and do, finishing welding work on this so it's all completely nice and solid. This arm over here has this fish plate type thing that just needs to get welded on over there, so I'll do that. Along with, running beads along all the seams and whatnot that need to have beads. And then later in the day I'll go back to working on that hinge over there so it works better. I have some 3/16 inch plate that I'll be able to turn into a bottom hinge so it's all nice and solid. So here, you kind of can see it. What I had did is made a fill panel, or a filler piece of metal, between the pivot tube and the last piece of square tube there. Right now it's just tacked in, and here I was just putting a full weld along it to fill the gap between the round piece and the square piece. I later went back and ground it smooth so it was a smooth transition, and then I flipped it around and put some fill pieces on the sides where the gaps were on the fish panel that was there. Alright, so I have the tire carrier arm and whatnot all welded together fully. As you can see, I did the fill pieces here and here to fill all that space in. Now, of course, I need to build something back here for a bottom hinge, because what originally came with the DIY kit will not work with the bumper that I have here. So I'm going to have to be doing a whole lot of work on this hinge. I have to build something to replace what this is, or supposed to be, and then I have to use some leftover pieces combined with some new pieces of 3/16 to build some support over here, do some sort of cap, and maybe if I can, some sort of cap on this side to make sure that this is as strong as it can be. And of course I have to run, a full weld all the way along here to make sure that stays in place. And then I'll have to fill in this little relief cut here that they had made for when you would normally bend the side piece down. So I'm going to do some measurement, do some thinking, and figure out how I am going to build myself a new hinge. So I got the bracket figured out. This is what came with the bumper, or the tire carrier rather. So I just used that as a starting point, and it just needed to be, I don't know, about 1.5-ish longer. So I'm going to transfer this onto a piece of 3/16 and then grind my contours down, and then I'll have to make some adjustments over here to line it up correctly. But that's that. Alright, I successfully transferred my template onto a piece of 3/16 and cut it out. Took a lot of grinding to get the edges right, but I've got it in there nice. And it came out mostly level, as good as I'll ever get it. So I've done a little bit of thinking, a little bit of fabricating, and I've come up with a few things. I took a flat piece of 3/16, which is actually an extra bracket, the part that I cut off here. I think I've said that before. I cut it down to the right size and slipped it in here to give this a little extra support, and then I just made little end pieces that I can slip into all of the sides, kind of like that. And then I made a kind of a funny looking one that'll go on this side, because this side is kind of this weird funny multi-contoured angle thing. So I took a scrap piece that was already a huge wedge when I cut the bottom bracket, and then just cut it short and ground the edges off so it kinda will fit into there like so. I'll throw a weld all the way around it and then grind it down smooth to give it, you know, sort of a smoothed off look. And then this piece would normally go on the end like this to tie the top and the bottom plate together. Luckily, this little notch they put into it, which would normally go on the end of the dirt bound off-road Mojave line, actually is the same size as the RS Fabrication bumper. So the only problem is that it's way too short. So what I'm going to do is use this as a template to mark this part out, make it a little bit shorter so it fits under here. I'll make it a couple inches longer so it comes all the way out here and gives the two hinge pieces all of the support that they deserve. And then this piece I'll reuse, because I'll chop the top of it off so I can fit it all the way in there, and it'll be like a mid-length support for the two up and down hinge pieces. And then normally there's nothing on this side anyways, and I couldn't fit anything over there anyways just because of the way the swing arm comes across. So before I put the cap pieces in here though, I'm going to take some weld through primer and maybe throw some paint in there, because otherwise it would be a cavity which would collect water or moisture and then over time rust. So to solve that as best as I can, I'll throw some weld through primer in there or something and fill it up best I can, and then I'll weld my caps on here and here, and then I'll get to making all the other brackets I just talked about, cutting this one down and making a better one for all the way across, and then I'll be able to weld everything up all nice and solid, and then put it back together, check fitment, and one thing I'm forgetting is there's another little bracket over here that is a stop and a little locking mechanism for the plunger lock that goes on the end of the swing arm to lock it in place. Alright, it's another day. It's Sunday now. A Memorial Day weekend as I film this. I woke up this morning and started working on some support side plates. So obviously this one out here I made to fit the size to go right on the end here, kind of like this. It actually fits really well. I'll be able to weld it across here and fill this gap up and make it look like it's one complete piece. I'll just have to, the only thing I have to do is make a few adjustments to this top plate here so it fits flush out here on the edge. And then as you see, I have made out of the piece that would normally go out here if I were building this tire carrier onto the bumper it's supposed to. This piece would have gone out here because these two brackets would have been much further in. But this is, you know, a different bumper and this is meant to go on. So I just took this piece, reused it, and if you're wondering, that's where I got the template to make that little notch there. And this one will be able to fit nicely down in the middle, a little bit more than halfway, to give plenty of extra support to this bracket. As it sits now, it actually will at least support its own weight of the tire carrier. Now, of course, it doesn't have a tire on it, and being that they're 35 by 12.5 Wrangler MTRs, you know, it's a pretty heavy tire, but it will at least support its own weight of the tire carrier itself. But with a tire, that puts a whole new level of stress on that, so that's why all the support bracketry is needed. So, up next, I'll just make some adjustments here, and then I will take the tire carrier back out of its brackets, finish doing a full bead across here, up under here, down here, and under here, and then I'll start with welding in the middle bracket, and then the outer bracket, and then I'll run all the way around the top. And then at that point, it's time to start cleaning welds up. For the most part, they're pretty decent. There are a few, you know, bad looking ones, I guess you could say. But for the most part, it's not bad. And then I just have to, I started to do it, but then I gotta finish making this transition over here on this side smoother. So, it's a nice day today. It was a 50% chance of rain. So far, we're good. We'll see how it goes. So if you're wondering, like I was, why the camera was picking up all these, like, loud popping sounds, apparently, I suppose it's obvious now that welding gives off a lot of RF radiation, and for whatever reason this camera is more sensitive to it than the previous camera I used, so that's what all, like, the popping and weird sounds are when it's looking at something that's being welded. It's just picking up the RF radiation. I also, between Saturday and Sunday, picked up a set of weld sleeves. So I had forgotten how bad a welding tan you can get. So, you know, like the usual Pollock that I am, I went out after I got one hell of a welding tan on my left arm, picked up a set of welding sleeves. So much better. I used to wear a huge sweatshirt, but I'd rather be able to wear a t-shirt and then just to have the sleeves to protect my arms. So that'll conclude this installment. Next time, I gotta finish up by putting the plunger lock on this side, and then I actually need to go ahead and build all the pieces to go up here to actually hold the tire onto it. Come back next time, like us on Facebook, link is in the description. That penetration. Look at that. If you're wondering, I use a Hobart 187. Nothing special.